I'm Petra Bachmeier,
And I'm Sean Galero.
and this piece is titled Open Square.
It all started in our living room back in Chicago when we were doing yoga with two different color yoga mats, and we had color changing light on, and our perception changed with the yoga mats changed with the color of the light. And so from there on, we decided to work primarily with color and light. And this is a full immersion of the square of a room divided in two that expands and contracts with the visual element of lighting, but also the color elements is this cool and this warmth color.
We have worked a lot in dialogue with architecture. So taking our experience of how light interacts with architectural structures into creating a spatial experience that is like a standalone space for you to come in and experience how spatial perception can be altered through lighting effects. We feel like it's a really exciting moment for us to actually remove ourselves from an architectural dialogue and actually create a space for you to come in and experience color and light and sound. Creatively, we find a lot of inspiration actually in architecture, in creating dialogues with landmark sites. We work a lot site-related, and we find deep inspiration also in nature and in environmental topics. But this piece, Open Square, is purely a spatial design.
Color and paint is a very complicated
It's
material,
really complex.
actually. You know, you're going from sort of the digital realm to the painted realm to the lighting effect realm to our perception and how color changes with the lighting.
Like nuances and changes of which, I mean, you see two different rooms, and one is using like warm tones, pink, orange, yellow, red, and the other room is using cooler tones like green, blue, turquoise. So kind of like more in like the greenish blue realm versus the warm yellow, reddish. But within these nuances, like if you tune one red next to another red, it works really differently. Like it's really about the composition of how colors come together and how they create relationships between each other, and how the lighting can then create these effects that we are seeking to create within that environment. So it's really subtle of how you have to dive into each hue. It's really phenomenal to see like a soft shift in orange makes a huge difference.
Very big difference. So going through the material, which is paint, we went through multiple samples to find the right combinations where it worked with the lighting so that at moments they all appear to be the same color and at moments they disappear. So we had to go through quite a few iterations of not only paint, but the digital process of aligning the paint to our design. So the material was challenging, and then the application of it was also, we're not painters by any means, but I think we're getting there where we can really create these designs and spatial elements through the painting and patterns. So it was a very challenging but also rewarding material to work with.
There's a historic collaborator, which is obviously Albers and Itten, and taking
Goethe
the whole
is always the masters of
color
theory.
theorists. They have been big inspired. They kind of created a roadmap for us to work with. And we have, for the sound element, we're actually also working off like an 18th century kind of historical sound colorist who created a scale for connecting color with sound.
So the colors of the rainbow, he attached it to the basic scale from C on up. And we used that, we riffed off of that. But it is really, historians are sort of our cohorts and sort of inspirational people who sort of give us the educational and historical narrative, but then this technology, the bridge of technology, using that again in combination with color theory is basically how we design the room.
But the high tones are in this
Right.
space, and the lower tones, like very kind of like low frequency sounds, are in the other room. So we kind of like played off also with the sound element and like kind of warm and cool. As you know, for us it was really fun to play with the layout of duality, to kind of take a mirror of its, like create a room that is a mirror of itself theoretically, but you apply it in two different color combinations. So within that you find like, you know, one color shifts, but then the opposite might happen in that color interaction within the other room. And at some points it looks like as if they are painted all the same. So it was kind of really exciting and also really interesting to find out like what are all these interactions within these color families.
Yeah, and you tune the lighting for one room, but it's completely different for the other. And so they're really in relationship. And then you tune one room with the sound and then the other sound. So there's a harmony happening, but there are two different characters as well. So two different feelings in each room.
Yeah, at some point the lighting is programmed to be really hot, where we kind of intend that all the colors that are actually painted on the walls blow out. So, and when this moment happens, it's actually kind of more on the bright spectrum here, versus in the other room it all goes to dark. We've known about the Mattress Factory for like, I think over a decade, and always had it as a very fun place in our kind of vision of like, maybe one day we can have a show there. It was more like, oh, this would be a dream spot. And so it was really fortunate to actually get selected for a residency here, because we feel very kindred to the spirit of the mattress art that you can get into. It's really been the motivation for our art practice in general. We want to create immersive art where kind of sound, color, light, sculpture all comes together.
I think it's unique in that it's an actual residency with an exhibition, with a piece of work that you create. And, you know, there might not have, the processes also is on site. A lot of you do have preconceived notions and you have concepts, but when you get on site, then you actually see the work and you're part of the work and you're installing the work. And so that's a very unique element to this residency. Others we were part of, we sort of conceptualized work or we worked on work, but never really showing it.
Not with the exhibition as being a really kind of motivation of the whole residency. And it's really phenomenal to have the support of the production support of the Mattress Factory team to actually facilitate bolder ideas that you couldn't do by yourself, to actually have the space and time and resources available to kind of create new works. That's really unique, and actually have this kind of support system, like where you come to Pittsburgh, you can stay here, you become part of the local community for a moment, and you have this daily ritual of coming here and working on things.
COVID gave us a lot of room and space to think. And this particular installation came out of the whole lockdown, the whole stay-at-home order that we had in Chicago. And so we developed this throughout that whole period.
Yeah, looking through color history, color combinations, we learned so much more about color than we knew before. So in many ways, COVID-19 lockdowns have been really productive for our studio. Usually we would chase like a schedule of a show, a project, a commission, And all of a sudden there was just the opportunity to go into your own process and dive deeper to get a better understanding of what am I actually working with, the materiality and what is the purpose of that work. I mean, we do understand this is not really talking about a pandemic, but it wants to be a space where you can come in and just experience a space.
It is the result of our process through the pandemic, in a way, of how color and the perception and opening up spaces sort of was affected through how we were kept into our space, but we were able to flourish under those conditions somehow.
Or shift the way we see the space. I mean, it's a space that exists by itself. It doesn't have to serve any purpose. And yesterday, when we had our first sense of what the space feels like with the lighting and the sound, it felt a little bit like a chapel of sound and color. So in a way, it's kind of like, maybe that's what it is. It's a moment for you to kind of go in, step out of your step into a different kind of reality and take the time to be in here.
I think we were also very cognizant of how to create the architecture, the installation through the walls and through the openings and the portals, and how you have this journey, almost exterior, pre-interior, then the interior. So it's sort of this, you're almost sort of shedding away the outside world as you walk through the installation, and then the colors and sound comes at you in an almost sanctified way. So it does have this spiritual quality to it. So maybe it's more of a spiritual architecture where it is interior, as you would imagine, but you have these physical structures that allow for that passage.
And at the same time, it's a very simple shape. It's a square. It's very kind of very linear in many ways. So, but yet there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening at the same time, of trying to break away from the linearity of it and like shifting the linear perspective.